You finished it. You worked hard. You gave it everything you had, and it is done. And for a moment, maybe a fraction of a second, you felt okay. And then something shifted. A voice that never fully turns off started scanning. What could have been better? What you missed? What someone else might notice that you didn't catch? And the okay feeling was gone before it really arrived. If you have spent your entire life working toward a standard that keeps moving, if done never quite feels done, if good enough never quite feels good, I need you to hear something before we go any further. That is not high standards. That is not excellence. And it is not, despite what you may have been told, a sign of deep faith. It is a wound. And today, we need to talk about where it came from. Perfectionism is one of the most widely misunderstood psychological patterns because from the outside, and even from the inside, it looks like a virtue. It looks like high standards. It looks like diligence. It looks like caring about quality. And in Christian communities specifically, it often looks like faithfulness. The person who never feels their prayer life is deep enough, who is never satisfied with how much they have served or given or grown, who holds themselves to a standard of spiritual performance that no human being could consistently meet, is often praised for their seriousness about God. What nobody names is what is actually driving the performance, and that is where everything changes. Psychologists distinguish between two types of perfectionism that look almost identical from the outside, but operate on completely different engines. The first is what researchers call adaptive perfectionism, a genuine desire for quality that is motivated by the intrinsic satisfaction of doing something well. This kind of perfectionism can coexist with self-compassion. It allows for mistakes. It can feel the satisfaction of completion, even when the result is not flawless. The second type is maladaptive perfectionism. And this is what most people who struggle with perfectionism actually have. Maladaptive perfectionism is not motivated by the love of excellence. It is motivated by the fear of failure. It is not pulling towards something. It is running from something. And what it is running from is the intolerable feeling of being inadequate, of being exposed, of being found out. This distinction between pursuing quality and fleeing inadequacy is the most important thing to understand about perfectionism. Because when perfectionism is driven by fear, nothing you accomplish actually resolves it. You finish the project, and the relief lasts for an hour before the next threat appears. You perform well, and instead of feeling satisfied, you immediately worry about whether you can sustain it. The bar does not stay where it was when you reached it. It moves. It always moves. Because the goal was never really the external standard. The goal was to silence the internal voice that says you are not enough. And that voice cannot be silenced by achievement. It was never about achievement. It was about worth. Where does this pattern come from? For most people, from a childhood environment where love or approval felt conditional on performance. A home where praise was given for results, not for the person behind the results. A school where success was celebrated and failure was shameful. A faith community where spiritual maturity was measured by visible behavior, and struggling was seen as evidence of weak faith. In each of these environments, the child learns the same equation. My worth depends on what I do. And if what I do is not good enough, neither am I. And here is where Christian perfectionism specifically forms. Many churches, with genuinely good intentions, communicate a theology that activates this childhood equation without realizing it. The emphasis on sin, on the need for ongoing repentance, on growing in holiness, on not being conformed to the world, is true theology. But for the person who already believes their worth is conditional on their performance, these truths don't produce growth. They produce exhaustion. The perfectionist hears, Be holy as I am holy. 1 Peter 1:16, and their nervous system hears, you are not there yet. Keep going. It is never enough. So what does perfectionism actually look like in daily life? Because it is rarely as obvious as someone straightening a picture frame for 20 minutes. It is far more internal, far more exhausting, and far more invisible to everyone around the person carrying it. It looks like procrastination, not laziness, but the avoidance of starting something because starting means eventually finishing, and finishing means being evaluated. And evaluation is dangerous. It looks like the inability to delegate, because no one else will do it right. And if it is not done right, it reflects on you. It looks like difficulty receiving compliments, because the compliment doesn't land. It slides off the surface of a self that doesn't believe it. It looks like ruminating after every conversation, replaying what you said, cataloging what you could have said better. It looks like the secret terror of being found out, the persistent background belief that people's positive impression of you is based on incomplete information. And if they really knew, the impression would change. And in the spiritual life, it looks like a prayer life that never feels adequate, a quiet time that always feels cut short, a service record that never quite justifies the grace that has been given, a relationship with God that feels productive when you are performing and distant when you are not. The perfectionist God is almost always a performance God, one whose nearness tracks with their spiritual output, not because that is who God is, but because that is the only kind of relationship their nervous system knows how to navigate. This is the reframe that changes everything. Jesus said in Matthew 11:28-30, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Notice what Jesus identifies as the problem: weariness, burden, a weight that was never meant to be carried. The yoke he is contrasting his own with is the yoke of the law as it was being taught, a system of performance and obligation that crushed people under the weight of never being enough. And his invitation is not try harder. It is not get better. It is come, stop, rest. Healing perfectionism is not about lowering your standards. It is about changing the source your worth comes from. The perfectionist's worth comes from performance, which means it is always at risk, always one failure away from collapse. Healing means relocating worth, not from what you do, but from who you are, not from output, but from identity. Ephesians 2:10 says you are God's handiwork, which is the word from which we get poem. You are not a project God is trying to complete. You are a work of art God has already made. The unfinished feeling is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is evidence of a lie that was told to you early and believed for a very long time. The path forward is not perfection. It is practice self-compassion, learning to speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love who is struggling. It is learning to distinguish between the healthy desire for quality and the anxious need to be flawless. It is noticing when the bar moves after you reach it and naming that movement for what it is. Not high standards, fear. And fear was never the foundation God intended for the life you are building. If what we've talked about today is something you want to go deeper with, I created a structured 7-day journey to help you calm your mind and begin working through the patterns your nervous system has been running on. It's called the 7-Day Guided Journey to Calm Your Mind. The link is in the description below. It's practical, gentle, and built for exactly this kind of inner work. Take the next step at your own pace. Subscribe to this channel. Every week I create content at the intersection of psychology and Christian faith, because your inner life matters, and you deserve the language to understand it. You are not alone in this.